All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Appointed Directors meeting for this month. It's Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. It's 12:04 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Commissioner Vice Chair Gary Edwards is participating through our Zoom platform, as are most of our appointed directors. I'm lonely in here, guys. I thought I'd get you to see some people in flesh and blood, but everybody's on the screen. And I've learned that being back in the boardroom, I love these screens we have, but I think I can go up to 9 people before the 10th person, then I can't read the names anymore. And I need help for somebody to know who's in the meeting. So I apologize. It looks like we're at 10. And I know everybody's face, but when I see names on the black screen, doesn't work for my aging eyes. But we have most of our directors here. The public can follow along on our YouTube channel or through a conference line, 360-252-9020. PIN is 1234. And Commissioner Mejia will be right in a few moments. So this is open forum that we do every month, and looks like Dennis was already midway through a report. So Dennis, why don't you tell us what's going on? I know there's been some stuff on your end of the world.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, we were just discussing, we're in our ongoing cybersecurity battle and some of the phishing that's been going on that folks have been seeing, some of those notifications. We are currently working on a solution to resolve that. It would be just expanding our multi-factor authentication to go into software as a service applications that we're using, because that is basically what's occurring right now. That's how folks are getting their credentials compromised. It's just on the software as a service applications. So we'll be doing some research. I'm actually meeting later today to come up with a plan. I think we might start talking about it at the cybersecurity forum on Monday, and then I'm sure everyone else will hear about it as we develop it. As far as just a regular update, we kicked off with our consultant for the permitting replacement today. So that's been great that project is moving forward. We have a kickoff for our ERP the first week of July. So that project is moving forward as well. And then our JTI case management project is set to go live mid-October. So I won't steal. I know other directors probably have some more updates. I won't want to steal everybody's thunder on that. Besides that, we've been really focused on our budget rate development, working through all that to bring to the board later this month for approval.
Questions for Dennis? Not seeing any. All right, thank you, Dennis. I'll go top left corner. That's Jennifer Walker, Public Works. Mid-bite.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see. So we are busy in construction season. If you've had a chance to drive down Mullen, you're seeing some substantial improvements that are happening. We are anticipating that project will be completed, I think, in September. One of the areas that I think we're struggling with, that I think is a nationwide challenge, is staffing, and even staffing in general, but then, we bring in extra folks for seasonal positions. And so we are struggling with that as well. So that'll start to, we're looking at other things that we can do, but it's certainly a challenge, just trying to get folks in to, we bring folks in annually to do weed pulling and extra maintenance work during these summer months. And so it's been a bit of a struggle. We're also starting to see some supply chain issues. So we've got the plastic pipe that we use for drainage. That's been, prices are increasing, raw materials are increasing, cost of metal is increasing. So, and then some trucking issues. But even with all of that, we're still able to make progress on our projects, which is good. The other item is for folks that travel to the Waste and Recovery Center, we did a software software upgrade there. And as a part of that, in terms of operations, when folks come in and do self-hauls, they no longer need to show their driver's license. So there's no longer needing to go back and forth with that. And we'll also be able to get some more timely and accurate data from the new software. So that's a good thing. But other than that, we're doing well in Public Works.
Questions for Jennifer? Ramir?
Is there a replacement of the driver's license on the new software, or how you managing the ID?
Pictures of license plates.
Okay, so and that's how you get the information from the address in which the license plate is registered?
If we need it, that is correct. Yes. One of the other things, it's the cameras that have been installed. We're also able to see the types of materials that are in the load, so it's easier to look at as well for our staff, and we can address any issues while they're still on the scales before they leave.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, fancy.
How many FTEs are you short?
We're down in just road operations, we're down 25%. And that's a combination of folks that are on modified duty as well as vacant positions. So one of the good things is, we've had a couple of retirements, and so we're able to promote from within, but that just creates those additional hirings that are needing to have. I think overall we're at like 10 to 12% down. I think that equates to about 22 positions.
I was just gonna say we're struggling with that too, Jennifer, as far as hiring folks. We got 3 positions open, and it's difficult. We are not getting a lot of traction on them.
Same with the facilities team. We're seeing a lot of turnover, and it's hard to recruit.
Same for us.
All right. Let's go with Shelley Slaughter.
Thank you. Well, you usually get to hear my COVID update every Tuesday, so I won't spend too much time on that, but that's obviously the biggest activity that's happening in our department. We're at 10,544 confirmed cases to date, and new cases today are 41. So we're continuing to kind of see this little bit of a roller coaster up and down in terms of COVID cases. Vaccines are going along as best as we can do. We're trying to be in many places as possible throughout the community. Last night I was at Planet Fitness, and I think we got about 20 or so people vaccinated there. And today the team's at Yale Middle School, and tonight we'll be back at SPSCC. So we're just trying to be everywhere we can and developing as many partnerships as possible for our mobile vaccines, and planning for the demobilization of our SPSCC site coming up. We're at that about 59% of 16 and older that have had at least 1 dose. And so I'm hopeful that we'll make it to the goal by 6:30, but we really need vaccines to increase. Hopefully somebody will win the lottery, and that'll make them excited to get vaccinated. We're also concerned about ongoing funding for all of our vaccine activities, especially in terms of American Rescue Plan funds. We learned yesterday that Washington State Department of Health didn't get any, and so we were planning or hoping that some of those funds were going to be passed on to us, because we have an obligation to continue some of this work going forward, but we don't know yet what that's going to look like. So I'm sure I will have more to report on that coming soon. Tomorrow for Board of Health, you should have received a notice from WASAC about an 1152 work group. So I'll be participating in that and have been engaged in conversations about that going forward for next July. I know a year will go by fast, and there's a lot to do on there. We have a new senior management analyst, Suzette Smith, that we stole from Lewis County that joined us. And so she's leading our fiscal team and has been on board for a few weeks now and is doing great. And I'm so grateful to Robin and Jennifer and everyone else that has helped support us in that transition. Another new staff position that we just recently filled is a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator, specifically for vaccines. But her name's Erica Mendez, and I'm really excited. She's going to be joining us next week, and I think that will be really great. And I think that's it for now for my report. Any questions?
Questions? Go ahead, Ramiro.
Just to clarify, when you talk about the WASAC meeting that is scheduled for tomorrow, it's at 11:52. Can you elaborate what 11:52 means?
Yes. So 1152 is a bill that passed the legislature this year that changes the composition of local boards of health. So it expands membership to include other municipalities and community and tribal members. That implementation is required by July 1st of 2022. A state advisory board is also established by this legislation, and so they're going to be providing, I believe, local counties with more information as to the process of what that will look like. Every county kind of has a little bit of a different, or some of them have similar structures that we have, but it will require the expansion of our current Board of Health.
Thank you.
My question on that is, this meeting was kind of popped up on my calendar and I was gonna try to attend, but now I have a conflict, and I'm just wondering who's attending this meeting? I mean, will it be a lot of county commissioners or directors of health like yourself? I mean, I didn't have a sense of who this meeting was intended to encompass.
I know that it will be directors of local health jurisdictions for sure, and Board of Health members are invited as well. I'm happy to represent all of you. I know this is going to be the first of probably many work group meetings. This is just the first one, so no problem if you can't make it. If there's anything you want me to be sure to convey or watch out for, let me know.
Yeah, I'm planning to attend that as well.
Okay, great. This is about the 11:52, like the expansion of the Board of Health. WASAC is putting together some kind of work group starting tomorrow. First of a series of work groups, sounds like. Okay, good. Then let's go to, there he is, Josh Cummings.
I had a feeling. So just to answer that first question, I'm going to be in the board briefing room for the 1 o'clock briefing that we have today. It's 90 minutes on processing fees, so looking forward to that. But this is, as we transition into this new back to the future world, do make sure that we know as directors if there's anything we can do for the commissioners or this process to make it go easier. I was able to engage with Amy Davis on the presentation format. She's got the stuff for the computer to upload and kind of do what we used to do instead of it being run by a Zoom. So just kind of working out those process kinks. Really appreciate the flexibility and coordination. And as we continue to have this lunch hour meeting, one of the things we used to do was have lunch during this lunch hour meeting. And if we do have that might encourage people to show up potentially. This is just a thought. Okay, in terms of CPED and what we've got going on.
Are you volunteering, Josh?
Sure, I'll be the first right out of the gate.
July, all right.
Yeah, great. Bologna sandwiches for all. So CPED, our big thing in terms of policy is the HCP, Habitat Conservation Plan, and that is moving along at the pace that we hope for it to move along in terms of the draft EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement. I'd like to say thank you to the chair of the board, Commissioner Mincer, and the county manager for participating in a summit with leaders of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the conservation group that's working to engage the Mazama Meadows project. That discussion showing the leadership commitment to this plan, to the HCP, is really the driving force that's keeping it moving through the federal government. So thank you for that. Second, the board should be aware that we've had multiple outreach meetings over the past year or two on the HCP, but have really ramped those up recently. And so the community is aware. We've met with the EDC. We'll be meeting with the chamber June 18th at their 7:30 a.m. meeting on Friday. So any place that you would like for me and Jennifer Davis or Chris Chapeau to get to provide kind of a progress report on the HCP, let us know. That HCP, the plan is moving from Jennifer Davis's group, which is the long range planning group, over to, in 2022, Brett Burris's group, which is the current planning group. That's the implementation. So having this shift from HCP, which has been the name for so long, shifting HCP into the concept of the ITP, the incidental take permit, that's what we're trying to get across to the community. We've got to shift our mindset into the now, because in 2022, we want to hit the ground running and be able to offer these permits via the ITP that the federal government grants us. That's a lot, but just want to put all that out there. And then in terms of the permit database upgrade, wanted to say thank you again to Dennis and his team. We did have a kickoff meeting this morning, a couple of them. And the part that I was able to participate in, sounds like we've got a really great consultant on this that's going to move this project forward quickly and efficiently. So thank you, Dennis, and your entire team for bringing us all together on that. Courtney has been awesome. And she has a little baby too, right? Well, that's even awesomer. And then just so the commissioners are aware, we're going to be talking to you coming up soon on the burn bans. We've got the 4th of July coming up, and then we've got the fire safety season coming up as well. So thank you to Kurt Harden for the opportunity to talk to the emergency services folks today and give them a heads up, but want to make sure that we're all prepared, that we've got a process in place to help your decisions go more smoothly and be based on information and data. CPED.
Thank you, Fire Marshal.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have a badge?
I have a logo, no badge.
Go ahead, Ramiro.
Hey, Josh, now that the cat is out of the bag, can you elaborate on the 1,500 acres in Tenino just sold and the opportunities that perhaps it brings to the HCP and the county?
Yeah, I don't have my notes handy, but I'll just try and do it off the top of my head here. So the Dr. Barnett property that we've been talking about for multiple years, maybe a decade, that the owner of this property, it's been called Alpaca Farms of America. It's been called lots of different things. There's been discussions about him selling that property for conservation purposes, him selling that property for private development purposes, him asking for docket items to adjust the way that that property can be used. All of these conversations have been swirling over the years. Over the past couple of years, WDFW, the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with a group called the Conservation Fund, which is a national group, has been engaged with Dr. Barnett on that entire property. And the acreage is escaping me right now, but it's huge.
1,500.
1,500, thank you, you just said that. Those conversations have been kind of fits and starts. And so there's been lots of different kind of movement and then not movement. But we were informed just like within the last week or so from WDFW that Dr. Barnett has is in the process of selling that property to the Conservation Fund. The Conservation Fund is partnering with WDFW on much of the land for recreation. And WDFW has reached out to the county to use portions of the land that would be great for mitigation purposes for our habitat conservation plan. We met with them on Monday morning. We've shared with them our specific areas, the 2 or 3 parcels that we want to purchase to engage the mitigation land for HCP. And they're feeling very amenable to it, and that we're working out the details of the process and the purchase and sale agreements as they're going forward. So lots of good partnership. You know, the board engaged with WDFW a couple of years ago, requesting that whatever happens in any land acquisition, that the county be engaged in that. And if you'll remember the name Larry Phillips, that's the regional director of WDFW, he did just that. So thank you to the board for making that request, and thank you to WFW for reaching out. We're looking forward to next steps on that.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Josh, just in terms of timing, of potential timing of availability, to be able, so I'm thinking about projects that we have that we're waiting on credits to be available. What is that looking like? I mean, best case scenario. I know you can't predict the future, but what do you think would be best case scenario?
Well, so the whole credit system, all of that permit process, so we have to have the land acquired, and then we have to have the codes approved by the board in 2021, and then we have to have our permit process updated to pass out that permit. And so all of this goes to first quarter of 2022. But we can start planning when we know what land we've acquired for our internal county purposes. We'll know what we can use. We'll have to line up the projects with the habitat for the species, and then see what we have in the bank for the mitigation that we've acquired thus far, and see how those match up. But all of that is written into the HCP as it currently stands. So it's a lot about timing. And as you're asking that question, I just remembered that I owe you an email about the different land needed for the different subspecies areas. Sorry about that.
Nope, no worries. Thank you. That was helpful.
Josh, just as a follow-up on that project that you did from Dr. Barnett's property, I know you're making some, your staff has made some points with the interaction in the last few days with Dr. Barnett about getting him his refund on some of the application process that he made years ago. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can, we will.
What's that?
If we can, we will.
Oh, I think it's been kind of technically agreed to from what I hear. So
that's excellent.
Josh, you probably know, but Jenica presented on the economic study in the HCP at the Grand Mountain Rochester Chamber meeting this month and did a good job with that. So sounds like she's another piece of your team for outreach and whatnot.
Yeah, she's been a great part of the strategy for sure.
Okay, good. Then, the Hollywood Squares have shuffled, and that brings up Pat next up.
Hopefully for the block. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, commissioners. Just a brief operational update on our approach in light of the new guidance on the mandatory masking guidance. We have set what I'm calling and phrasing return to the office hours for the week starting July 6th. So we're working with staff and a process here as we transition to increased in-office hours for our staff that have been working more heavily in the teleworking environment to transition back to more increased office hours. So it's interactive with staff, so they have an opportunity to make requests based on their jobs on what their preference would be in returning to the office. But it's our first step. I think it's time for us, and I made the decision to do that. So we're excited to welcome more people back into the office, but still, keeping teleworking as part of our working life. And so we'll see how that goes. But it's really part and parcel to some of the things that we want to start doing and getting our first steps back into having an increased presence in our courtrooms. So we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate all the guidance that the county's given us. And in addition to that, we'll be welcoming in, the public as well, and creating, a safe environment while we do that, while members of the public come in and adhere to the guidance that they're given on our front door with masking. We're experiencing the same thing in terms of recruitment. We have several recruitments posted right now, defense attorneys and legal assistant positions. We've sort of seen this statewide with, particularly with defense attorneys. The marketplace is shrunken, frankly, with not just COVID backlogs and the pandemic, but also in light of the Blake decision has really created quite a marketplace for defense counsel to represent clients. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we're in the process of filling vacancies because we need these vacancies filled now more than ever. That we continue to deal with a crushing backlog of work for our attorneys and staff. They are working and have been working incredibly hard in very challenging circumstances, but the numbers of clients they're representing are reaching a point of very concerning. Have been for a while. So hopefully we'll get some successful hires there. As Dennis mentioned earlier, our big project is our case management system. And that replacement project's been an 18-month endeavor. I still want to thank the board and the prior board and the county's commitment to helping our office replace an aged system. So we're set to go live with that next month. It's a little nerve-wracking, a lot of things moving to make this happen. As you can imagine, we're talking about an entire history of the county's criminal justice system, from the public defenders and the prosecuting attorney's office, all migrating data into this system, and how these two systems are going to work on a daily basis. So I think we're jointly feeling ready, but also just anxiety as anybody would feel when making such a big shift. So, and one other update I'd like to just share with everybody here and then the public is the county continues to pursue our law enforcement assisted diversion program, and Shelley's been a part of that, obviously. And we have an update. I know there was some items on the board's agenda yesterday where our policy team had selected two key members of this project, which is the program management aspect to help run the program, as well as the service provider. So there were recommendations made to the board yesterday. I didn't see how that went, but we continue to move that project forward, and we're hoping to start having referrals from our community through this program as early as sometime at the end of this month. But that project continues to meet its milestones, and I can't tell you how excited I am. So that's it. Oh, and big thanks to Dennis's team and Jennifer. I was actually at the Waste and Recovery Center this weekend, personally clearing out my garage, and I did notice that they didn't ask for my license, so that was different experience. They were great. I even finally went over to the hazard place to get rid of a lot of old white gas cans that I had from an old camping stove, so that was unique.
All right. Questions for Pat? Anywhere? All right, thanks, Pat. Mary Ann, you're up.
Good afternoon. I too have hiring process going on. I had a vacancy in my department middle of last month, and I have interviews this Friday. So while I did not have as many as I have historically had apply for the positions, I have some really qualified applicants. So I'm optimistic to fill that quickly. I also wanted to let the board know, if you don't already know, that pretrial services did meet their objective for universal screening, and I wanted to thank you for that. That's with the new staff that I had for expanding to district court. So now everyone that's in the Thurston County Jail that's going in front of the court for getting their conditions of release set is getting fully screened by my staff and with those recommendations. And that has been an objective, and I believe that's initiative 10 of the county strategic plan. So I wanted to let you know that we accomplished that 1 month ahead of schedule. We also have people reporting to our department. Our compliance rate is up to 95%. So the individuals who are released with the obligation of reporting to pretrial services are following through by and large. 95% is a very good number. And we also have an appearance rate for those on our supervision of 93%. So I think that that's very beneficial, and wanted to let you all know to highlight that for you. With our advancing pretrial policy and research project, we continue to move forward with that, looking at our system, and our validation is supposed to be back from RTI International next month, and I'm hopeful that we will have that so that we can start looking at our new risk assessment tool and the process that we might want for that. That's my update.
Questions for Mary Ann? All right, thank you. All right, that brings me to Robin.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'll start with the budget team. We are currently working on the budget instructions, as well as internal service rates, and the call to budget, which is just the formal kickoff day, is on the calendar for June 17th. And if you haven't gotten that invitation from Mary Hall, then let me know and we'll follow up on that. We're also working on Budget Academy, which is going to be a series of 5 classes about budgeting. We'll start with how to build your budget, then Rate Day, which is an in-depth look at internal service rates, followed by writing a persuasive change request, how to forecast for your fund, and reviewing your budget before you hit send. So those classes are coming up. I think the schedule has been sent to your finance officers, but we're going to open that up to everyone. Central services, nothing out of the usual to report. We're maintaining cars, we're maintaining buildings, we're working on projects, we're delivering mail, and all those things that offices and departments need to be able to operate. So that's all running along smoothly. And then finally, we continue to work on the business end of the pandemic, looking at the money, looking at our facilities, working closely with HR and public health and emergency services on the best strategies to open our buildings, and just paying close attention to what the opportunities there are.
Now, Robin, you're telling the commissioners not to fall into the everything's good thing, and then you're teaching them how to make persuasive change requests, and I'm a little worried about this.
That's my job, is to play both sides. Yep, advisor to both the board and to the offices and departments, and just because you can make a persuasive change request doesn't mean you get funded. That's always been part of that class.
Yeah, but you're going to show them how to persuade us.
Well,
Maybe. You got a question?
Yeah, Robin, if you can just briefly elaborate on the ARP funding. And it seems to be when we had the initial allocation to the county early in the year when the bill, the federal act passed, there was a lot of excitement as to what opportunities this could bring. I know that just last Friday, the Treasury developed yet another series of guidance, which my brief read of that, it appears to be even more restrictive than what it was from the CRF funding that we had back in 2020.
So I will just say that we didn't have Treasury guidance at the time we requested the funds. That came out at the same time as, the notice to claim your money. So we claimed the money, and now we've been looking at the guidance. And as Romero said, almost every day we see something new coming out from Treasury. And the restrictions are getting, I'm going to say they look much more like the federal awards that I'm accustomed to. The coronavirus relief funds that we got last year were really open. And with the recovery fund, they've closed a lot of the loopholes and they're putting more and more restrictions on how we can use the money. And just on Monday, I heard that it's possible that we won't be able to use the funding for the backlogs in the courts. That was the latest thing that we're looking into. So we are carefully reviewing what we can and can't do and what we know about that money. And hopefully soon we'll be able to come to the board with recommendations, but they're ratcheting down in the normal federal way.
So one of the big chunks of that was going to free up, so to speak, some money was to be able to pay back costs for that were COVID related, under whatever restrictions. Is
Right.
that still going to be able to be done, provided it falls into those categories?
So at the current analysis is probably not. We were going to, everything we had heard about the recovery fund is that it would be retroactive to the beginning of the pandemic. It's not. It is only retroactive to March of 2021 when the bill was signed. They've also closed the loophole on how to do the blanket eligibility for public safety costs. So we're taking a very careful look at what we can and can't claim under the public safety umbrella. There is now so last year the CRF money was not subject to CFR 200, that is the federal uniform guidance for federal awards. So CRF was not subject to the uniform guidelines. The recovery fund is subject to uniform guidelines. That brings in a whole lot of rules around timekeeping and indirect costs and a lot of other things that we now need to apply to this money. So, you know, our ability to create capacity in the way that we did is something that we're looking at very hard right now. And I don't know that we'll be able to do that.
Which might apply to space plans.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for Robin? Jennifer?
Robin, I missed it. Do you have dates set for the Budget Academy yet, or that's coming?
I think that appointments have been sent to your finance staff and I need to forward those to you. I know that 3 of the 4 classes have been set for sure.
Okay,
We're also going to record them. So if you're not available on the date they're set, they'll be available on our website.
great, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Robin. Kurt, you're up.
So in theme with what Robin talked about for budget development, we're deep into the Medical One budget process because the EMS Council has requested the first initial briefing of the draft budget on June 16th. So, and Robin, I will start off by saying budget instructions will be following the next day. So I think that that'll be appropriate there, but I think we're probably pretty much on track with what's taking place with the budget. It's just that not everyone understands the county budgeting process on the EMS Council. So that's why Robin gets some interesting emails from me sometimes that says, where do we resource, or how do we resource this or track this, or what's the citation for that? So appreciate, Robin, you and your budget staff being patient with us as we move forward. On the emergency management side, I will say that we are still processing COVID PPE from the state and distributing that out to organizations within Thurston County. The state emergency management has indicated that they're looking on an exit strategy for providing PPE. but we are still, it's about 20 hours a week of staff time for the PPE that's coming in and being distributed out to organizations. We just conducted this morning the summer hazard seminar. So as we focus towards wildland fire was the theme for the one this morning for the summer hazard seminar. But we're moving in that direction. And again, thanks to Josh from talking about the fireworks and burn ban discussions and the information that we're going to be pulling together for that. And jumping on the seminar this morning and updating everybody on that. And then under emergency management as well, we got last month in May a federal HM hazard mitigation grant program award of $222,000 to update our hazard mitigation plan, which expires next year. And that money, that funding will go towards that. There was a placeholder in the 2021 budget for the receipt of these federal funds. And so once we get the contracts in, we'll follow through the process with the budget office, et cetera, for getting the contracts in front of the board. And then on the Medic One side, we still are seeing our call volumes increasing. Last year, our call volumes went down due to COVID, and now they're coming back up to pre-COVID levels and numbers. In fact, we expect to see over 36,000 EMS calls this year alone, which would be an increase over 2019 and definitely an increase over last year. We're continuing to see a challenge with fire agencies to help train and retain paramedics and EMTs within the system. That continues to be a challenge that's impacting a number of the fire agencies out there. Part of that might be attributed to just a COVID burnout, for lack of a better term. I think Shelley understands that. That healthcare workers, which includes EMS personnel, have had a hard year through 2020 and going into 2021 as well. So that's pretty much the update from emergency services. I will also say that from a personal viewpoint, Jennifer, trying to get contractors and et cetera, about 3 weeks ago, I discovered my wall bulging a little bit. And so to get a plumber in took 3 weeks, and the plumber actually walked in today to take a look at it. I started to take a look at it 3 weeks ago, and in order to preserve marital harmony, I deferred to the plumber. So I learned that a long time ago, and so now but the good news is it's not going to be as bad as I originally thought, but it is out there, and it takes a long time to get contractors in.
Questions for Kurt? All right. Megan, I was hoping you could do a public information update. She's off screen, but we have our public information officer.
Come to this chair.
I'm specifically curious about what the website stuff that kind of derailed with COVID, and we haven't really heard much about that and what the vision is for getting that project.
So the website is still paused because we need to figure out the funding mechanism for the website. We already went through the RFP process, so we don't have to start that over again. We can continue negotiations with the apparent successful vendor once we have a funding mechanism in place. Robin may want to speak to that part of it a little bit more. But as far as that project goes, we're still in a holding pattern, but it won't be as long of a process once we have the funding mechanism in place, because we don't have to go through that whole RFP thing again. And so we'll be able to just continue with negotiations. Robin, if you want to talk about that.
Right. So I think that we've already let the board know that the cost had gone up substantially from the initial estimates, and we're now thinking somewhere in the $500,000 to $600,000 range for this project. We just don't have that amount in the budget right now. So one of the things we looked at is, would the website qualify for the recovery fund? And barring any new guidance from Treasury that says it's not, we think that we could make a solid case for updating our website. So that will be part of the proposals that we bring to the board on how we use some of this $28 million.
Yeah, one of the things that we did is I worked with IT and with public health, and we looked at, how did COVID directly impact how we could serve citizens because of the state of our website? There were lots of things that if we had a functional website, we would have been able to respond to the emergency a little bit better. One big thing is the emergency banner at the top of our website. It takes IT like 8 hours to update all the web pages because there's 5 or 6 different systems that they have to go in. Some you can update them all at once, some you have to go every single page and update. So even just that alone, we could not put out a single emergency message effectively and timely. So I think that we have a pretty compelling case to say that yes, if we had a functional website, we could have responded much better.
Great. Anything else that you want to report on?
No, not at this time.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Megan? All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, then Commissioner again. We've got 10 minutes for the commissioners. Do you have any report you want to make?
I do not have any reports at this time, no.
All right. Commissioner Edwards just stepped out. The only thing that I thought of, I don't know if the county manager's email about the criminal justice position went countywide or?
Next week, but you can go.
Okay. So we had a criminal justice program manager position that I was kind of a big advocate for last year, and we finally got a person hired. We had really good interview panels that included the county manager, Wayne Graham from the prosecutor's office, myself, Sheriff Snaza, Patrick from Public Defense, and Kelly Olson, who is a citizen representative on our Law and Justice Council from the Civil Survival Group. Sat on 2 different panels. We interviewed people. We had applicants from all over the country. We interviewed 3 top choices based on all of our screening, and we pretty much agreed on the top choice, and that person accepted the offer, and that person is from Rochester. Originally, Rochester High School graduate, who was working for the state of Washington in policy, on sex offender policy stuff. So her name's Leah Landon. She starts July 6th, and I'm very excited about what she might be able to bring to the county. So that was something I wanted to update on. I just thought it was amazing that out of all the people we had, and I mean, Patrick was there. I mean, we had somebody running a big program for the mayor of Detroit. We had somebody, who was running working for a national foundation for police, basically working with police departments all over the country. And she was based up in King County, but had gone to University of Pennsylvania and was from I think Vermont or something. I mean, the people, and then to have our consensus, and it wasn't a stretch. I mean, she was legitimately, the Rochester candidate was legitimately the best candidate, in my opinion, after the interviews. Also bringing in all that local connection and knowledge of Thurston County, what we're all about, I think will just be icing on the cake. So, county manager, anything?
Yeah, a couple of updates to follow up. Along the way, we're advertising to recruit for the racial equity program manager. So if you have somebody who can probably fit that particular skill, please encourage them to look for it. And also, I don't want to steal the thunder from Commissioner Mejia, but this week we had a meeting with the Mexican consulate. And the purpose of that conversation was how we can probably think of some strategies to reach out to the Hispanic community related to vaccinations. So as soon as you get your person in place next week, Shelley, I have some information to share with her, and I think what we received an email this morning with some good alternatives, some good options as to how we can reach out to the Hispanic community.
Excellent, thank you.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say a few things about the atrium project and stuff, but after Robin's report, I'm not going to say a word about that because it just seems.
No, give us time.
Yeah, it seems like we were pretty excited about being able to move forward, and then we had some wrinkles come up, and I felt like we were maybe close to ironing those wrinkles out, but it sounds like there might be more wrinkles, so we'll just have to keep working forward. I'm enthusiastic about trying to make it happen if we can.
Yeah, give us some time for Robin and I to come back to the board with the whole package.
Okay, very good, yeah, Jennifer.
Oh, that leads into the question I was going to ask Robin and Romero. What are you looking at in terms of your time frame for that proposal to the board regarding the 28 million?
So I have I put in my whiteboard today, June 22nd, but I need to touch base with Robin just to make sure that we have lined up everything what the board needs in order to at least a decision. But at least I would like the board at that time to consider the help to business and nonprofits, and that will be at least the first decision the board may consider at that time. But we should be able to bring a whole package like that. And in fact, related to the interim, we have a meeting tomorrow with the owner, I believe, Robin. And so
Romero, you're breaking up. I'm sorry. I don't think anyone wants to say anything, but we can't hear you.
yeah. Well, that's a good thing. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you miss? I'm sorry.
So I heard June 22nd.
Okay, so June 22nd is the date.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
any
you.
final questions, comments? Commissioner Edwards, any report? Nope, he says he's good.
No, sir, everything's good, thank you.
We'll be seeing Josh here just in a couple of minutes. Great to see everybody. Don't be shy next month. You're welcome to come to the 280.
Might even have lunch.
Yeah, Josh may be
Josh
bringing
volunteered.
bologna sandwiches for everybody.
Barbecue.
I was going to say, I heard filet mignon. That's what I heard.
That's kind of like.
Your Zoom connection's not working, Jennifer.
I heard it's gonna be hard-boiled eggs. Got chicken, eggs. For days.